Joining us now to talk more about the latest on the war in Ukraine is Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, now retired from the U.S. Army and a senior fellow and defense expert at Defense Priorities. Thank you so much for joining us today. To start off with, leaders are meeting at the G7 right now, where discussions are largely focused on this war. Will you talk about how significant it is that President Zelensky is there in person to be part of these discussions?
Well, Zelensky himself has said just in recent days that he really pressed to go in person instead of the teleconference version, which is what apparently they had asked him to do, because he feels like in person he can be more persuasive, and he feels like he'll get a better chance to actually get some positive results. And he certainly landed with quite a flourish today. The red carpet treatment in Japan and certainly the world's media has been all over it. So at least from a PR perspective, his visit has been quite successful so far.
Yeah, and a new aid package announced by Germany recently. President Biden also jumping in to offer some support. We'll get to that in just a minute. But Friday night, the G7 laid out new sanctions against Russia. Do you think these sanctions will actually make an impact on the country or this conflict?
Yeah, not any chance at all. I mean, I understand why people want to do this. I understand why they support them. But the problem is that Russia has long ago learned how to live with sanctions, and most of these sanctions really had no impact beyond, sort of just show and symbolic effect or so. But that doesn't have any effect on the actual fighting, because Russia has all it needs to be able to execute its military operations, and they can provide themselves with all the supplies that they need, ammunition, weapons, and training and everything like that. So unfortunately, it's not going to have any impact. It's just, I think, more for show than it is for anything else at this point.
Yeah, in a reversal of stance, President Joe Biden says the U.S. troops will now help in the effort to train Ukrainian pilots on F-16 fighter jets. Why do you think he has reversed his stance, and is this a good move here?
Again, I mean, in a certain sense, sort of like the sanctions, this is not going to have an impact on the war. And I think people really need to understand what's involved here. Let's see, the Undersecretary of Defense just about a week ago said that he calculated it would take between 18 and 24 months to get all the pilots trained up, to get the aircraft identified, brought up to operational status, and then delivered, and then on the ground ready to operate. Now then, other officials in the Pentagon have said in the last 24 hours or so that actually, no, it would take maybe 4 to 6 months to train the pilots. But just training the pilots is not the issue, because they have to have enough of those weapons. They have to have the infrastructure for it to maintain them, which is a much bigger deal than people realize, because these things have to be highly maintained almost on a daily basis when they're flying. But beside that, look, these are not any kind of wonder weapon. They can be shot down just like the MiG-29s that the Ukraine has been flying. And so they are definitely a better airframe, and they can help, but they are not, I'm afraid, going to prove decisive or change the dynamics.
And at least it seems like a few more months before we see any of those flying over this conflict. Today, though, Russia did claim its private army, the Wagner Group, took control of Bakhmut, but Ukrainian defense officials have denied that, saying the fighting is still ongoing. The battle for the city has been raging on for more than 200 days now. It's the longest in the war. Will you talk about why this region is so significant in the overall war, especially as Ukraine looks to launch its counteroffensive any day now? This has been such a point of symbolism for both sides, but will you talk about why you think it remains that way?
Yeah, the both sides had decided that Bakhmut was going to have extraordinary psychological impact for both of them. Militarily, I argued back in December that it made sense for Ukraine to withdraw in order from the city to their next prepared defensive lines, not far from Kramatorsk and Slavyansk, which apparently they have done now. But they refused to do that, deciding to try and hold on to it for the symbolic value, wanting to deal Russia a loss. And as it's turned out, Russia has taken it. There's actually a lot of video evidence from the Russian side on the beyond the western side of Bakhmut, so it has been taken. but the fighting will continue to go on in the areas around it. And perhaps that's what the Ukraine side is referring to. But the fact is that after 220 some odd days, it has now fallen to the Russian side, and that's going to give their side a big boost, and it's going to be a problem for the Ukraine side. But you can certainly understand that the war is going to continue on, and who knows, maybe 2 or 3 months from now, nobody even remembers this because there are many battles yet to fight.
Yeah, absolutely. It certainly seems like there is no real end to this conflict in sight, at least in the next several months, maybe to the end of the year. Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, thank you so much for your insight today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.